seems to be a gap between the difference of recognizing and being able to identify your personal stories and discovering what data you need to process and move through it. Those aren't the same. So, for example, therapy is extremely useful for identifying your stories, going back into your trauma, going back into your childhood, really being able to kind of expose the things that kind of created your, I don't know, the things. I always think of it as like a big heavy cape that you're carrying along on your shoulders, and each story weights it down, right? So it's the things that we don't even know that we're carrying. And some are generational. Some you don't necessarily own, but they are in your body. Some are, created by our culture. Some are created by external coming into you, and those kinds of stories being broadcasted to you. So that's one aspect, right? So those are the stories. And then there's the assessment of where you are now, being able to own where you are, what your part is in those stories. So, for example, that's the kind of thing where someone's still dealing with their parental trauma at 50 years old. I'm not saying that the triggers aren't there and the frames of those issues aren't there. They will always be with you, they are part of your makeup. But the story within it, as opposed to the framework that contains it, can be healed. You can heal both your immediate family trauma and your generational trauma. But there is a gap. There's a gap between the two, because what happens is, as humans, we get stuck in our personal story. The only way that I have found to extract myself from the personal story and start to really take responsibility and have really true self compassion. I'm going to put in one more point. Self love is necessary for looking at your part of things, because if not, it becomes self flagellation, which really is a form of masturbation. It's a form of being the victim. It's getting off on your own misery, right? So in order to have the ability to look at those stories with a little bit of objectivity, you've got to be able to have real self love and compassion. Self love and compassion without the frame of something larger than yourself, God, source, universe, will lead to self obsession or self worship. Without the context of God, your self inspection will remain here in your ego. You will never be able to transcend it. You will be stuck in the land of here and now. And that's the gap. Without the insertion of God and the compassion that comes from a relationship with God, where you can just as sternly take responsibility for yourself without beating yourself up, that's how you start to extract the lessons, let go of the dramatic details, step out of the story, and start to really move some energy and get to healing. It's a long, slow process. And honestly, even just the act of being able to identify and label the story is huge, because it gives you that place to start to branch out from. That you are not your story. You do not have to live with the heaviest cape weighing you down. And what I try to do bit by bit for myself, and what I try to contribute, is the tools that I use to be able to untie that necktie of all that shit I've been carrying around, some of which is not even directly mine, it is generational, and let that cape flutter to the ground behind me and not carry it forward. And the side project is, you will heal your generations retroactively, let alone the generations that come after you. So if you are on the path to identifying your stories, that's amazing. Don't get stuck in the narrative. You've got to bring the really soulful self-compassion that is given to you. And it can be a wrathful self-compassion. You need to be a little tough with yourself. Tough love has a place, not self-abuse and not narcissistic self-obsession. but true self-love and fierce compassion for yourself to allow yourself to really elevate without the limitations you put on yourself. That's fucking showing up. And if you can tie that in to feeling it in integrity all the way through your body, that's where real shifts happen. And I really believe my whole purpose here is to help you identify the markers of being in integrity with your body. When you are in integrity with your body, you can be the most fit person in the world and be completely disembodied. And if you think about the things that we've been being fed, sitting in front of a computer, online dating, like all these things are on purposely designed to disassociate yourself from your body. So your innate knowledge of your wisdom is cut off because it stays in the esoteric space because it's not in you. And the only way to start to bring that through and recognize it is to notice what's going on with your body every time you identify a story. You feel a trigger come on. You've got to own that all the way through yourself. And that is the only way we're going to start to take these steps out of that self-fulfilling prophecy. Or else you're fixing yourself in a vacuum. And the only thing present in the vacuum is your ego. There is no transcending the ego. It's so fucking clever. It tricks me all the time. And usually retroactively, my skill is now that like my reaction time is a little better. We will all always be tricked by the ego. We are all liars. We all rationalize. We do it. It's part of the beauty of our humanity. If we didn't have that, we'd never get out of bed. Because sometimes the truth is really bleak. So I would never say kill the ego. You need a healthy ego. I mean, if you're not going to believe in yourself, who the fuck's going to believe in you? But you fall in love with that narrative, that's it. And it tells it in such like a really rough and true way. It sounds like you're really fucking getting somewhere. But you're not. Because if you don't feel it through your body and you have not extracted the story and you've not brought in the context of something bigger than yourself, you haven't actually gone anywhere. I've done it. I do it. I do it. I own it. And then I turn around and try to take a bigger view. And that is what I offer you today. And I will see you tomorrow.